G'day, legends. G'day, superstars. It's Peps. It's Lace Out. And it's round 6 review time for the greatest sport in the world. For the people who haven't joined us before, I'm your host, Christopher Pepper, the 377-game superstar of the East Keilor Football Club. And to everybody joining me on the chat, everybody listening live in their car, on the way to work, just listening to the greatest podcast that's not affiliated to any other club. Thank you for joining us live on our Anzac Day show. It's been a massive weekend, everybody. What a huge weekend of footy. Round 6. Can you believe that we're already starting to see a gap between the have and the have-nots? We're going to get into all that sort of stuff, let me tell you, very, very shortly. We're going to get into the news of the day. Anzac Day, what a cracking game of football it was today in the AFL. Could not have asked for anything better, let's be honest. It was a belt between the Essendon and Collingwood, the footballer clubs, but we'll get into that very, very soon. We're going to get into all the games on the weekend. We're going to have a bit of a chat, some massive news, a different splash the cash for this weekend. A couple of bit of a shorter show because we haven't got a rising star and a couple other bits and pieces that we normally have by this time due to the lateness of today's game. But it was an absolute belter of a game. Join me, get on the chat, ask me anything you want about footy this weekend. Ask me anything about this weekend's games. Ask me anything about football in general, and we'll have a bit of a chat about it on the chat. It's a packed room. I can see everybody joining us right now, so I'm really looking forward to it. Where do we want to start? I reckon we'll start with our normal preview or our normal review of the AFL ladder because there has been some movement at top of the town when we talk about the ladder for this weekend as we've just finished the Anzac Day round. And at the top of the ladder, we've got two teams standing out. One of them that we presumed was going to be top of the food chain, and the other one has completely come from nowhere. And we're talking about the St Kilda Saints and the Collingwood Magpies. 6 games played, 5 wins, 1 loss, but one is sitting at 142%, being the Saints, and the Magpies sitting at 119, a really good percentage for those two teams. And then we have 5 teams loggerheaded, packed in tightly on 4 wins. The D's, my team, the Melbourne Demons, have moved all the way up into 3rd position with a cracking percentage of 129. The Bombers, after their gallant 3 quarters, but a game is over 4 quarters, Bomber supporters. You've got to walk away a little bit happy considering what you've been through over the last number of years. On 120%, the Crows, I would still say the single best forward line in the league. And when it fires hard, 115%. The Lions had a great win on the weekend, 113%. And the Power are starting to trigger beautifully across. No blackouts at this stage of the year, Kenny's boys on 101. The Blues, they've dropped considerably and are looking in danger of dropping out over the next couple of weeks. They're on 92%. And have a look at this team. This team is sitting 0-3. And in 3 weeks, they've moved themselves up to 9th, but with a percentage of 137.69. The second best percentage in the league behind the Saints. We're talking about the Cats. We've got the Swans. They're going backwards at the rate of knots. A loss to Melbourne, a loss to their nemesis, the Cats, on the weekend. They are sitting on 3 wins as well too. The Bulldogs, great win over there in Fremantle. I would pick it, by the way. I did have 9 winners this weekend. I'm not going to brag, but I will. 9 winners plus the bonus gets me 10. So I'm coming home in the footy tipping, and I did pick the Bulldogs to have a great win over the Dockers. I'm telling you now, ladies and gentlemen, that is where the 8 will be made out of. Don't worry about any other teams. Don't worry about the Giants. Don't worry about the Dockers, Suns, Kangaroos, Tigers, Eagles, or Hawks. They are out of it for the season. They are done. They are cooked. They are finished. So we've got 11 teams needing to slot themselves into 8 spots. Suns won't make it, Tommy Roker. I'm sorry. There's just not enough there for me to get excited about. But I reckon it's going to be 11 teams all the way down to the Bulldogs who are going to be in the race for the 8. But if the Suns come back and surprise me, I'll be very, very surprised. But geez, they need a bit of work because they haven't shown much over the last couple of weeks, except for the weekend, which we're about to get into very, very shortly. All righty. Before we get into today's game and all the other games, I want to talk about Draft Watch. We've been talking about our rising star, Jacob Grant. Now, if you haven't been on the planet for the last couple of weeks, we are on the road to the draft. And we're following one of the Dandenong Stingrays' most beautiful young gentlemen by the name of Jacob Grant on his way to the draft. On the weekend, he played in the Vic Country, Vic Metro trial game, heading into the All-Australian, aka Teal Cup National Championships to get into the squad. Had an absolute banger of a game, kicked two, took an absolute hanger of a mark. He's moving and grooving through the forward line, was absolutely sensational. So I reckon the big boy has a massive chance of playing some national carnival football. Hopefully he can get his way into the 25. We'll see what happens. But our boy, Jacob Grant, had an absolute stunner. So for the next 4 weeks, the Coates League will shut down in Victoria. So he'll go back to his local leagues. So he'll probably play some senior footy over the next few weeks, and then we'll get back into it. But I'll give you a bit of an update on the road to the draft. All righty. I think it's time to go around to the news headlines. The news headlines for this week, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently because there's really only one headline that comes to mind, but I can't play the usual music for it. This is the music I'm going to have to play.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
Dollar bills.
Ching, bling, bling.
Here comes the bling bling, everybody. And when I talk about the bling bling, I'm talking about the bling bling dollar bills, ching ching. For the apparently to be announced later this week will be the new funding for the Tasmanian football team, the football team to be played out of Tasmania, and they will be getting funding from the federal government to contribute to the new stadium going live. So this week it looks like that the federal government are going to inject up to $240 million into the project. The state Liberal government, led by Premier Jeremy Rockliff, are going to contribute $375 million, and the AFL are going to contribute $115. So whilst there's been overwhelming support for Tasmania to get their own AFL team, and I have been one that said, yep, Tasmania, I've also said the Northern Territory, it will only be granted if a built for fit or built for purpose stadium comes to fruition. And I can actually see it happening. It looks like it's going to be a injection of around about $715 million for this project to go live. So it's great news for the AFL. It is great news for Tasmanian football. They have been screaming out for an AFL team. Should have got one probably before Greater Western Sydney and Gold Coast. No offense to anybody joining us right now, but I think it's great for Tasmanian football. And finally, we'll be able to have a fixture that is equal and adequate for every single team using my theory or my rollout, my plan for the fixture, which I've shared with you before, but in 25 words or less, simply broken down like this. You get the 18 teams, you split them into 3 groups of 6, you play every team once, which gives you 17 games, and then you play another 6, which equals 23. The next season, you play all 17 again, and another group of 6, and then the next year, you play all 18 with another group of 6. It's easy. It works. You're going to play 24 games for the year, which is what they're playing. This year, everybody wins, and you get to play every team twice over a 3-year window. It's fair. It's equitable. Don't worry about where teams finish on the ladder. It is luck of the draw. It is as simple as that. And that's what I would go with, and that is what I would recommend. But Tasmania, it has to be announced, doesn't it? It'll be announced before what's his name comes, finishes up everything. Before Gillian McLaughlin finishes everything. It's going to be an absolute ripper. But yep, going to be awesome. All righty. Couple of things. The Crows or the Crom showed that they are shit. Apparently showed Craigie Jones. He's telling me that they have been shit. Question from Tommy Roker off the chat already is, how is East Keeler, my boys, going? They had a cracking win over Maribyrnong Park on the weekend. Won by about 3 to 4 goals. It was very, very tight for 3 quarters, but they kicked home in the last. Played absolutely cracking football, sitting 2-0, heading into a big weekend of footy for round 3 of Eston District Football. So go the Cougars. It's going to be tough for them. The top 4 looks pretty awesome from an EDFL perspective. But my boys, East Keeler with Heathshaw. Ben Silvani was also a chance to play, but got called up for Collingwood as well. So go Cougars, and I'll give you an update that on every week. Tommy's going absolutely berserk on the chat as well too. Ozzie Harris didn't play last week. I think he had some Essendon. And the week before, Ozzie Harris. He had 3 goals as well too. He is an absolute gun. You've been telling me about Tommy, telling me about him for quite a while as well too. Craigie Jones reckons, hey, why don't we have 20 teams, split the league into 2 conferences, and they play each other twice? If they play each other twice, you'd have 18 games. Don't think it's going to be enough. Okay. All right. So the Crows. He's also saying how the Crows, they are no good when they only got over the line against a shit team like the Hawks after spending 4 straight weeks at home. They are as soft as shit. I will say one thing, Craig, when I talk about the Adelaide Crows. They did steal victory from the jaws of defeat, and I feel very sorry for any Hawthorn supporter who watched that game. It was as simple as this. There was a free kick in the last, I reckon, 30 seconds. Hawthorn player copped it in the back. Now, I've been hearing some people say it was in the side. It was a genuine in the back, but unfortunately, with 4 umpires at the moment, the umpiring side of things isn't getting any better. I'd love to see the statistics of the free kicks paid over the last 5 years, whether they've increased or decreased. Because I can tell you now, with 4 umpires at the moment, I was at the game last night for Melbourne and Richmond, and I saw some of the worst free kicks given, and some of the explanations given were blowing my mind at home as well too. But yeah, they were really stiff, Hawthorn. I think they played some great footy. I'm going to get into them very, very shortly when we check out the scoreboard. But they've had 4 home games. Interesting way of looking at things. But like I said, Taylor Walker absolutely stepped up last week, so you can't fault him as well. And we'll talk about the power as well. All righty. Before we get into that, I want to have a quick chat about the magnets. I want to spin some magnets really quickly for you as well. So I really only want to get into the good stuff first and foremost, because they're going to be very quick.
3 votes.
All right. 3 votes. Simply have to give it to 2 people. First of all, it's the AFL and the way the Anzac games, and when I talk about the Anzac games, I'm talking about the Anzac Eve game and the Anzac Day game. They're the 2 that I'm singling out here. 2 cracking contests over 2 nights with over 180,000 attending the contests. Simply amazing stuff. That's more people, I think, that attended Gather Round in Adelaide. And I'd like to thank a friend of mine, Stacey Prentice, who was able to send me over one of the beautiful Gather Round scarves. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'll be wearing that for the rest of the episode. If you're watching me on the live feed right now, tell me how hot I look right now. But the Gather Round, but absolutely sensational stuff. 2 sensational games. Jack Viney won the Checker Hughes medal last night. Nick Dacos, someone said earlier on, Jolie Michael joined us and said that is he the best first-year player that he's ever seen? And I'd probably go close to saying yes as well too. There hasn't been many that have got a potential to win a Brownlow in their second year. Brad Hardy did it in his first. We'll keep it at that. But he is on the way to absolutely dominating this season, and I just don't understand why no one tags him. Please tell me why no one tags him. Just at least have 1 or 2 players to run with him. He's good, but if Lingy was able to do it and Cornsey was able to do it for years on some of the best players in the league, there is no reason why you can't potentially tag this guy, even nullify his influence to 20 possessions. Unbelievable. So one thing I want to point out is those 2 there. But I have to get into the dragged because we have more in that bucket, and that's what I want to get into right now. You there, Ron?
Haley off, Ellingworth on. Bloody weak as piss.
All right. First and foremost, I quickly had a quick chat about it. 4 umpires, are they making officiating worse? Over umpired games, incorrect interpretations. This is the karma bus for the AFL, and it needs to be ridden to Fixville because at the moment, the game is a challenge to watch. One decision I saw last night baffled my mind. absolutely baffled my mind. It was simply this. And if you haven't, get on the Twitter sphere and have a look. Get on any of the AFL Facebook pages. Angus Brayshaw had the ball late in the third quarter, had the ball and was under pressure from Morris Rioli Jr. He happened to get bumped. It was more like a spear tackle, Goldberg style, into the ribs, but was able to get his kick away. Yet the umpire, for whatever reason, caused it to be incorrect disposal. Now, last time I checked, if you kick it with your foot, that is correct disposal. It wasn't even a tackle. Even to blow my mind even more, I did not even know this one. And if you knew this, please tell me that you did, either on the chat here or on the Facebook page. I did not know that the protected zone is 10 meters, not from the player, but from the mark. The protected zone is behind the mark. Now, Jake Lever, the old fist of fury, Jake Lever himself, if you see the footage, runs up behind the man on the mark and jumps up and down, just like, just jumping up and down, trying to put him off. And apparently that was encroaching on the protected zone. Now, I thought the protected zone was either side of the player and it was a straight line. I didn't realize it actually was behind the people on the man on the mark. If it was, well, then it's a brand new rule that I've never even heard of. If it was incorrect, the AFL had to come out and say that they made a mistake. But the chances of them coming out and saying that they've made a mistake, well, it's probably Nathan Buckley's and none. It was probably a chance of, got a probably better chance of Hurdy saying, yes, we did it. We did it. We did it. We did get on the juice. But that's never going to happen. And so it's just making the game tougher. And there would have been decisions across the board. People, the deliberate out of bounds. I saw a punch. I saw a sliding punch go out of bounds, and they paid that as deliberate. I can't keep up anymore with just the way this game is being umpired. And they're just three decisions. And that was from one game, let alone how many others we could pick out of all the other games. Guys walking ball across the line, that's not deliberate. It is an absolute joke. But great to see Buzz here. St Kilda must have won again on the weekend. You can't even defend now. Melbourne players got pinged for a deliberate in a 1-on-2 and didn't get rewarded. We know, Buzz, and that was just one example. And every game was shocking across the weekend too. I've already mentioned this one as well too. Can someone please tag Nick Dacos? Like, it frustrates me as a former superstar. Hold on, can you be a former superstar or are you always a superstar? I think you can always be a superstar. So I'll say this, from a superstar footballer that I wasn't a tagger, let alone. But we always had that player who may not have had the best skills. He may have not been a creative, might have been a defensive liability. But one thing they could do was run and run with someone. And you telling me that there's no team at the moment that could just tag him? And I watched some of the footage today. I actually watched quite a bit of the game as well today as well. And it was just amazed me how much space this guy has. Now, I know he runs from contest to contest, but there wasn't an Essendon player within 10 meters of him in most circumstances. They just let him off the chain. The ski rope was huge, and no wonder why he gets from contest to contest. He was absolutely sensational, but opposition clubs give him the opportunity to do so. I know Luke Markov was awesome today as well too, according to Tommy Roker, which was probably exactly right as well too. One other one, and I'm going to pick on this bloke because there's so much said about him over the years, but the package, he's kidding himself. If I was an Essendon supporter right now and I saw the way the package handles himself and the way his attitude towards football at the moment, I would be pissed. He's got the potential to be the best player in your team, and he doesn't look fit. He kicks one goal, gives the face to the crowd, and he's a disgrace. As a disgrace, I wouldn't play him. I just thought that if Scotty was real, he would say, you're not playing. You just cut him out. Can't play him. Doesn't run, doesn't chase, looks unfit, and his attitude needs a good adjustment, especially because Essendon are playing awesome footy at the moment, which you don't hear me saying all that often. He's just a liability to that team, regardless if he stars for 5 minutes of a game. It's not good enough. Why should 22 people pull their weight and he just carries it. I don't know. Absolutely a disgrace. But so much more to get on that in a moment. And last one, Brian Taylor. Okay. Please raise your hand, and I've got mine up right now, if you are sick to death of Brian Taylor in the commentary box. He's killing the game. When he was on radio, I thought he was pretty good on Triple M with the boys. But I'm just sick of him. And I think a lot of people now are getting sick of him. Now, he's just taken it one step further. He was having a crack at the SEN box. I don't know if you've seen the footage of this, but he was having a crack at the SEN box because they only had one person commentating live at the MCG Tigers game. Mate, who gives a shit? Honestly, who cares? Focus on yourself. And it just gives me the shits that it's a big boys club in that Triple M box now. And professional courtesy has gone out the window for the sake of a few flicks and a few likes and a few tweets and a few thumbs up. And I'm just over it. I'm really over it. And Channel 7, you're destroying football by having that nuffy talking throughout the game, the captain obviouses, and then having him in the rooms. His biasness towards Collingwood games is out of control. I think we're all sick of it as well too. So they're my dragged on. I've gone pretty hard on a couple of people, but I don't really care anymore. I'm just sick and tired of, trying to be nice. And I'm thinking a few things. We just have to say it for what it is these days. And I'm not worried about what people think about me and about this show. I love this show, and I do it for the people who are listening to this right now, and I do it for the people on the chat right now as well too. And I'd rather listen to ABC Footy, and I'd rather listen to 3AW. You know what? Because it's talkback and it's real. Just like the shitty music that they play on their radio station right now and anything on the FM channel, it's all doof doof, and we're all over it. So there's my votes, there's my dragged, and I think it's now time to get into the weekend scoreboard. All right. So that means that if we look up, back of the room, it's time for the scoreboard. All right. Let's go all the way back to the Western Bulldogs, 49-point winners over the Fremantle Dockers. Now, the Bont absolutely smashed it again. How good is this bloke? How good is he? Who's the better player? There was a question raised at the moment, and we're going to get into this other club very shortly. But if you could choose the Bont or Jeremy Cameron right now, who would you pick? That's I'll even put that as the listener question for this week. Right now, who would you pick? Would it be Cameron or would it be Bont? I'd be going with Jeremy Cameron because key forwards are a rarity. But the Bont, he is, if he's not up there with Josh Stakos in the Brownlow, he would have racked up, I reckon, 4 BOGs in the first 6 games. So they are a massive, massive chance. He's playing some cracking footy right now. He had 31 touches going at 80%, 800 more metres, and that also meant the Doggies had 25 more inside, 25% more inside 50s over the game. They just weren't working hard enough, Freo. They even won the hit-outs by 20, but still lost the clearances by 1. So Darcy was getting his hands on the ball. Jackson getting his hand on the ball. But once we know with the Doggies, as soon as the ball comes out, they love to spread. Quick hands, quick moves, and they were just sensational about what they did. And you can't fault them. They just played absolutely cracking footy. And I'd even go to say that was the best Western Bulldogs team game I reckon I've seen. I know they beat Brisbane earlier this year, but I reckon on the road against Freo, who had their backs up against the wall, and let's be real, Fremantle played finals last year. They're shit. They are absolutely shithouse. And I can't understand where it's all gone wrong. They play a style of football that's a couple of years old and they haven't adapted, and I can't see them changing at all for the rest of the year. And the best thing about it is, and this is what makes me laugh more than anything, Fremantle's part of the Luke Jackson trade have given Melbourne their first and second round pick for this year. So at the moment, Melbourne have got pick 5, and I think it's could be about pick 25 as well, because of Freo. So thank you very much, Freo. You just keep doing what you're doing and we'll reap the rewards at the end as well. It's kind of funny. Buzzer's back and he's been saying that he can't believe that the Saints picked Jack Billings over the Bont, and now they're all starting to come out. Can't believe Tambling got picked over Franklin. I can't believe Watts was picked over Nat and Nui. Everybody's got that disaster story for their particular club. So if you've got one, drop it in the chat right now. If not, drop it on the Facebook page. We'd love to hear what's been your worst trade in the comments below. All right. Port Adelaide Power, 40 points over the West Coast Eagles. Port just way more efficient with moving the ball forward. Won the inside 50s by 11. Also led 31 scoring shots to 20 as well. Rosie, BOG. Finlayson kicked 5, but it was good for Jai Cully to kick 4. I think West Coast over the last couple of weeks, I know I'd probably say the Melbourne game and last week, because they've had to play more kids, they're looking like they're moving the ball a lot faster, moving it a bit quicker as well too. And I think it's something that Simpson has probably made the mistake in relying on his premiership stars way too much. So by having these injuries, I think they had 16 players on their injury list at the moment. That's how bad that they're going. Everything is starting to roll through as well too for them. So getting these games into their kids would be much better for them. But Port were just, like I said, really efficient with the ball moving forward. Their season is really on track. They've got top 4 aspirations where they absolutely should be. And they were fantastic. Rosie, like I said, was sensational. And Finlayson kicking 5, really good. With all the stuff that he's going on in his personal life, it was great to see him come back to some form as well too. From all of us as well too, I want to say, hi J-Dog. Tommy Roker's thrown out the hi J-Dog. It's not just from Tommy. It's everybody. J-Dog, we miss you. We'd love to get you back. Probably when Port make the top 4, I guarantee the J-Dog will be throwing his hands up to join us back again. Craigie Jones, Port's trade with the Hawks that saw the Hawks get Wingard and Port ended up getting Burton and Butters. I think that Burton has been a sensational inclusion for your team, Craigie Jones. He had a couple of lean years there, but I would say probably this and last, he's probably got to that form that we saw him performing at the Hawks. And at the time, it was a really interesting trade. I don't understand why the Hawks did it, because he's the perfect player that came in as well too. Tommy Roker saying the Weller trade when you gave up pick 2 for Weller. I can sort of understand that, but at that time, you needed some guns to come in to your particular club. To say Weller was worth a pick 2, probably not. But you did get Weller, you did get Charlie Ballard as well too. So at the moment, you look at it, and he's actually been fantastic since he's come back from his knee as well too. And I think Charlie Ballard has got a lot to offer as well too. So maybe it might be going a little bit early on that one, but I reckon that is going to be a nice little winner for you guys there. And right, you're right there, Craigie, as well too. Craig Jones. Burton is not a forward. Put him down the back line. Let him just run and defend. That would be the best. All right. Brisbane by 21 points over GWS. You know what that means, everybody? I think somebody kicked one of these. Bags. We love it when they kick them. Bags. It's got to be 6 or more. Bags. You know we're talking about, aren't we? Charlie Harley-Davidson Cameron. He kicked a 5. He kicked a beautiful 7 on the weekend. That's a great bag. No, a bag is not a 5, Tommy. A bag is a handful. 6. 6 is a bag. We've been saying it. 6 is a bag. 5 is a handful. It's 6 or more. It's got to be 6 or more for a bag. We're going old school. And did Charlie turn it on? Funny enough, though, statistically across the board, this was actually a pretty even game by both teams. Kelly was sensational. Toby Green was sensational as well, too. Xavier O'Halloran kicked 3. But the main difference for this game was Charlie Cameron. If you go and have a look at the statistical analysis between these two, it was Charlie's 7 that really literally got them over the line. GWS, I thought they might have been a sneaky chance, but they just didn't account for the great man running around the number 23 for the Brisbane Lions. Brisbane, they're an interesting mob, aren't they? It's like they win anywhere north of Melbourne, but anything under that, they're in massive, massive trouble. So I'm still not sold on them just yet, but if they can just get some consistency, I know they've got a really good spread of goal kickers, but at the moment, I'm just not seeing it enough. But Charlie Cameron stole the show, giving the 3 Brownlow votes. He was sensational. But GWS, hold your head up high. All righty. Now, did we see this one coming? It was on Saturday. It was on the Saturday night game. The Geelong Cats by 93 points over Sydney. You would have thought that there's a grand final replay between two teams, but this was literally a grand final replay because the margin was virtually the same, if not a little bit more. Danger was BOG. But it was just their scoring efficiency going inside 50. They had 32 scoring shots from 52 entries. What more can you do from that? Like, there's teams that can't even get 20 shots from 60 entries. Can't even get it from 50 entries, but they were sensational. So it was literally, one and a third scores for every for their entries across. You can't ask for much more than that. It was interesting when you have both the McCartan boys out, how much of a difference they make as well. And when you've got some old legs in Lloyd and Rampy running around, that made it difficult. The midfield was just decimated and destroyed, and they're fallen. Brad Close is one of the best games I've seen Brad Close play. It's great to see the long sleeves just tearing it up. His work rate was outstanding. We'll throw a question out there, just throwing it out there because I feel like it. How did Mitch Duncan get off? How did he get off when we've seen so many players rubbed out so far this year for bumping? And with the analysis from the AFL or the tribunal saying that, you should have been able to, move out of the way, etc. How he hasn't been rubbed out or at least sent to the tribunal for a chat, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's no, I don't think he got off the MRO with his mouth there, Craig, but fair issue. Hey, Tommy Roker saying it was a fair bump. I don't think it was. Have a look at it again, and there's a difference between bracing for impact and bracing towards the head. And I think he was bracing towards the head. There's been other bumps this year that have been fairer, and they've been rubbed out. I thought of the head was sacrosanct. Caught him not when it's Geelong, but that's just another story from another day. So, yeah, Geelong just doing what they've done over the last 3 weeks. And like I said, their percentage is 140 plus, and they are ripping and tearing Hendo Rick style. If you've been with the series for quite a number of years, you know who Hendo Rick is. All right. Hey, Buzz, we're going to chat about your boys. St Kilda by 22 points over Carlton. Who did it say more about? Did it say more about St Kilda or did it say more about Carlton? In my humble opinion, I think it said more about Carlton. And it came down to, because statistically Carlton were in front across the board, virtually led every category. But where they lost it was the necessity to kick it to their twin towers. So Curnow and Mackay pretty much have been kicking a majority of their goals throughout the year. St Kilda spread their goal kickers, and it was laid to bear on the game on the weekend. It was 8-5 goal kickers, okay? But if you take out their number one forward, and when I say number one forward, Mackay didn't kick any, so forget about him. I've taken out Membry and I've taken out Curnow. They only had 4 other goal kickers. St Kilda had 7. So if you have a look at the stats, Carlton pretty much won everything from possessions to clearances to everything else after that. But it was their willingness to always go to the big guys, which was their undoing. And Callum Wilkie is in all-Australian form. He's the number one fullback in the league right now. He just mopped it up. Sinclair as well too just keeps mopping it up. And they are playing, like I said, awesome footy. And it just goes down to that forward line and they spread it out. Butler played his best game in quite a while, kicking 3. But it was just the way that they're playing football. And they ground out a win. It's probably a win that we needed to see from St Kilda. I know that the week before against Collingwood was a great game. But this was a team that we thought that Collingwood on their home deck, St Kilda on their home deck, who could take it out? St Kilda, they aren't shit Kilda anymore. We'd love to say shit Kilda, but they're not shit Kilda. They're Saint Kilda. They're back, and Buzz is on a Chubbs Farquhar right now. So he is absolutely excited. All right. Tommy Roker, going to chat about your boys, mate. The Gold Coast Suns up by 43 over North Melbourne. North have gone backwards. What a great start to the season, and they have gone completely backwards, which is a real shame because I thought the Clarkson mould would have made more of a difference this year. But whose list is better, would you say, North or Hawthorn? It's interesting, isn't it, when you look at those two, North and Hawthorn. Who's got the better list? I would have said probably North by a smidge. Far from it. They lose a couple of their keys and the wheels fall off as well too. But Gold Coast got a win that a lot of people thought they would. But I think the big thing to come out of this was Ben King kicking 5. A lot of people, and including myself, said just throw him behind the ball, play him at centre halfback, let him run towards the ball, get some confidence. But it clicked. He kicked 5, which was awesome. By the way, your inside 50 efficiency, can't even say the word, the inside 50 efficiency that Gold Coast had, it was 15% above their yearly average. So their season average, I think it might have been sitting at around 45, 46. They shot that up to close to, they shot it up to about 50, 58, 59. So it might have been 41, 42. So I could be wrong with this, so apologies. But their efficiency inside 50 was exceptional as well too. The only bad thing to come out of this was our boy, the bloke that Tuke Miller going down with a bit of a knee. Now, Tommy has said that it's going to be a 4 to 6 weeker. But just when you think you can get in some traction, and this is the problem with Gold Coast, they just can't get their full contingency on the park. And, King comes back, Tuke gets injured. Rao goes out. It could be Weller comes back, somebody. You just want to see the full contingent and to give Stewie Jew the opportunity to have everyone at his disposal. Now, there's probably going to be some changes because the Gold Coast Suns VFL team are killing it at the moment. And so they've got some opportunity for some young blokes to come in and make a bit of a change. Sexton, who I reckon he'd get a game in virtually every other team on a regular basis, but for some reason can't do it at the Gold Coast, should be back in as well too. So it'll be interesting to sort of see what happens with the Gold Coast team over the next couple of weeks. So there should be some changes coming in. But hey, good to get that record back as well. All right, Melbourne versus the Richmond, the Anzac Eve game, 85,000 odd people there. It was a cracking game to go to. It was literally the biggest home and away crowd that Melbourne have played in since 1964. That's how big this crowd was, and it was a belter of a game. If you can't get to Anzac Day, go to the Anzac Eve. It's a completely different game, completely different environment, but the two teams, Melbourne and Richmond supporters, were out there. It was an absolute gem. The D's won it by 18. Hey, this was actually a pretty even game. I even said at one stage I wanted to go home at halftime because Melbourne were putrid. They were 24 points down at one particular stage, could not move the ball, couldn't do anything right. Richmond were dominating. The chaos ball was there. Everything that Richmond have done over their premiership seasons was alive and well. And they were pretty much taking Melbourne to the sword. Rewalt was sensational. Cumberland was brilliant in the first quarter. Melbourne were fumbly down back. But as the game wore on, I think the Rucks pretty much wore on them as well too. So Gawn went more forward. He was clunky. I think he took 8 contested marks for the game. Grundy was brilliant in the ruck again. He was putting it down people's throats. Oliver Petrarca and the Checker Hughes medalist in Viney were brilliant. And at one stage, they were going to put this bloke on ice for the game when they were bringing Laurie on. They said, no, we'll just leave him out there to see what it is. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what your favourite marsupial is, everybody. It might be the platypus. It could be the wallaby, but in my eyes, it's the Jacob Van Rooyen. 3 goals in the last quarter with an absolute hanger. I think he is going to be an absolute gem, this young kid. Melbourne have got him for at least the next 4 years, so we're very, very happy with him. And I think he's going to be a real nice one for the competition as well too. So, hey, Richmond, hold your heads up high. You played some cracking football. I think you just got outrun by a more experienced, a more hardened team. And I know I've heard that they're saying that Richmond weren't at full flight when it comes to their playing list, etc. But outside of Nankervis and Lynch, they've said Graham, they've said Broad, maybe Tarrant, but we haven't really seen much of Tarrant since he's come across. How many more out there were there? So I don't know. Lynch, yes, would be the difference. Nankervis, yes, but outside of that, I don't think there was much in it. So they're sitting 1-5 at the moment, Tigers, and they're going to be a real challenge to even make finals, which will be a real disappointment for the club. But, they're going through a regeneration and not a rebuild, as many people say. And from Melbourne's perspective, look, it was a game that they had to win. They were really disappointing against Essendon. Are they firing on all cylinders? No. And if they lost last night, we'd really starting to be asking questions. But they've got the next 3 games of North Melbourne, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, which hopefully they should be able to nab and then set themselves up for a tougher back end of the season as well too. And I will say one last thing as well too. is that, pretty even. The D's had 10 more contested marks and 40 more uncontested possessions. So I think they had to open up the Tigers throughout the ground by hand to split open the defense. And that's really what won them. And it was really in that last quarter as well that they set them apart as well too. So absolutely sensational. Great game. If you get a chance, watch it as well too. And what about today? Collingwood over Essendon. Nick Dacos, he is a dead set freak. 13-point winners. Wins the Anzac medal. Essendon were brilliant, but they were just outrun by the Pies. Now, the uncontested split. Collingwood won the uncontested possessions by 49. Now, I would say most of that came in the last quarter. I reckon Essendon were pretty much out on their feet. And they've just got this never die attitude at the moment, Collingwood. They are, for all intensive, they are the premiership favourites. I don't know. People said Melbourne. St Kilda's up there at the moment. Probably could have a look at maybe Brisbane and Port. I don't think Sydney are, must a bit. Essendon, too early to tell. They are far and beyond. They are the number one ranked team in the league. I know Geelong. I know number one ranked attack and the third ranked defence. Collingwood are number 2 and 2. Melbourne are 4 and 4. Brisbane a third and 10th. And St Kilda have the 12th worst or 12th best attack, but they've also got the first best defence as well too. So from a rankings perspective, you've got Geelong, you've got Collingwood, you've got Melbourne. But I just like what I'm seeing with Collingwood at the moment. And they are up to their throats at premiership favourite. And just the way that they won over the way they won over Essendon today was sensational. I will say one thing though, Essendon, it hurts me to say this being someone who can't stand Essendon, but you are playing great footy this year. And if I was an Essendon supporter, I would be very, very happy with what I have seen so far this year. And hopefully it lasts for all of you guys. So for the rest of 2023 as well too. So there is today's scoreboard before we head into a massive round 7, which means that we're going to have a quick look at 1 week at a time. And the games that I am looking forward to this week being round 7 in the AFL. Alrighty. Friday night is going to be an absolute corker. St Kilda versus Port Adelaide. It's going to set one team's season up with that top 4 spot. If Port Adelaide can pinch this one, it means that their chance of getting that top 4 that they yearned for last year are very much alive. And if St Kilda win this one, it's pretty much going to have a lot of things go wrong for them not to be playing, not just finals, but top 4 as well. The Battle of the Bridge is happening as well too. Sydney versus GWS. GWS will win that one. Sydney appeal at the moment. They can't do anything right. Interesting game. 7:30 p.m. at Optus Stadium, West Coast versus Carlton. Could you imagine if West Coast beat Carlton? And they've got every right to at the moment because West Coast haven't been the worst team out there and Carlton haven't been any good at all. So I would say definitely West Coast are a massive chance to take that one out. What about Sunday? Have a look at the games on Sunday. Essendon versus Geelong. Like, that's a real test for both these teams. Geelong at the MCG where they love to play. Essendon on the big, wide vastness of the G. Are they able to do it outdoors under the roof? Not too sure. And Richmond versus the Suns at Marvel Stadium. Well, there won't be anyone there because Richmond supporters don't go to Marvel. And I reckon the Suns can pinch this one because I reckon they're a massive chance. And then you've got Adelaide, arguably the best forward line in the league, versus Collingwood, arguably the best team in the league. Absolutely awesome. So I reckon it's going to be a cracking week. Bo Hawkins has joined us as well too. Good to see him back. Deeds Norths, I haven't recovered from being at Heritage Bank and seeing the Suns beat Norths Witches hats. I think there's been a lot of people who saw the Witches hats of North on the weekend and have been a little bit concerned about where they're going. But hey, look, if there's one person I trust, it's Alistair Clarkson. He's going to get some more top-end talent come in at the end of the year. And as long as we can see some growth out of their playing list, that's what we're really asking for as well too. So listeners, that is Lace Out's round 6 review. Hey, everybody who was live, and there was bucket loads of them on the chat tonight, thank you very much for joining us. Without you, we don't have the show. And everybody who's joining us, listening to this in your car or your radio, etc. By the way, next week I have our first sponsor. So I'm going to give you the heads up on our sponsor. Let's put it this way. If you need security for your business or for your home, they are the ones to call. So I'll let you all know about that next week as well too. Listener question will be on there. Who are you going to take, Bont or Jeremy Cameron? Interested to see what the results will be. And remember, Tipped Out will be back this week with my tips. Not going through the full team, just giving my opinion who's going to win it and why for a massive round 7 of AFL football. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself, Chris Pepper, I just want to ask you one question and one question only, and it is simply this. Have you given us a like, a review on Facebook, on Spotify or iTunes? Please go ahead and do us. Tell everybody about us because we are arguably the best podcast when it comes to AFL footy. You know, we are. But the other question I have is, how do you want your footy? I don't know. The answer is Lace Out. Have a great week, listeners. Hopefully your team wins. Take care.